Good evening, everybody. Sinead here from the National Menopause Summit. I hope everybody's keeping well. I'm delighted to welcome everybody to the next of our menopause supports. And this evening, I'm absolutely and utterly thrilled to be chatting to Goretti Sheridan. And Goretti is a superintendent in An Garda Síochána. And Goretti was one of the people within the organisation who was instrumental in introducing the menopause guidance document in February of this year. February 2023. Yeah, that's correct. So Goretti was one of the people very much instrumental in terms of introducing that document in An Garda Síochána. Good evening, Goretti. Delighted to have you here. How are you keeping?
Hello, Sinead. How are you? I'm delighted to be here as well. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, oh my God. Well, it's my absolute pleasure because when we were doing the menopause support Insta Lives pre the March event in Dublin, we were only speaking to our clinicians. So we decided what we do this time, Goretti, is kind of broaden our horizons and speak to all kinds of people who have been very instrumental and menopause champions across different sectors. So it's wonderful to have an opportunity to obviously speak to you representing An Garda Síochána this evening. So Goretti, can you give us a little bit of a background in terms of how this really positive initiative came to be within your organisation?
Okay, Sinead. So going back a couple of years now, I was at a webinar, an online webinar, and supporting women in the workplace, and one of the modules was on the menopause.
Right.
And there's a lot of information being facilitated or being provided by West Midlands Police and Devon and Cornwall Police.
Okay.
So that kind of invoked an interest and possible other side effects that I was experiencing myself. I spoke then with our Women's Network, which we have up and running since 2019, and with our wellness team up in Garda headquarters in relation to the menopause. And from that, then a steering committee was set up in relation to looking at the menopause, because it was certainly something on the Richter scale, I suppose, but it wasn't being progressed, I suppose, at that stage.
Right.
So our CMO, our Chief Medical Officer, then set up a steering committee with representatives from across the organisation at all grades and all levels. The country was covered. And from that, we started working groups and devising documents and consulting with the relevant parties within the organisation to develop the document, which was launched then in February this year.
Now, I mean, it's so fantastic, Goretti, because I think everyone would agree that An Garda Síochána, obviously traditionally, was very much a male organisation. I think it's fair to say that, isn't it, Goretti? You know, I mean, so it's wonderful, obviously, that not only that we have female Gardaí, needless to say, but that they are also being supported through menopause. What are the particular challenges, would you say, are presented through perimenopause and menopause for your female colleagues?
Well, I suppose like any female in the country, the organisation at the minute, I suppose given a flavour of our female representation, just over 28% of our staff, of our guards, are female. Our Garda staff, there's a higher percentage there, but like of our Garda members, probably there's over 4,000 Garda members,
right,
and over 2,000 Garda staff members, and of that, approximately 50% are aged between 40 and 55 years of age. So I suppose we can take it that, you know, somebody, if not all of them, are experiencing some elements of the menopause, whether it's peri-meno or post-menopause. So I think it's just something that we have to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And in terms of, I know you were saying that you this had come up, or if I'm correct, that you'd been speaking to your colleagues in West Midlands Police and over in the UK and all the rest. So from an Irish perspective, how did you sort of kick off putting this document together? For example, did you organise sort of menopause education, if you like, through the force, or how did this all work in practical terms?
Well, through our wellness team, in Garda headquarters, and I suppose as part of our health and wellness strategy and our diversity strategy, we knew we had to consider it. And then it was a matter of looking at other people to see what they were doing. We spoke to our colleagues in the HSE that had the medical background on it. And then we spoke to our colleagues in other police forces to see, well, what did they have that maybe we could look at that might be useful.
Yeah.
Suppose the crux of the menopause is the same for everybody. I suppose it depends then on the work environment. And as obviously with the guards, it's you're talking shift work, and you're talking working weekends and, probably having unnatural sleep patterns anyway, and then bring in menopause and you possibly have women not sleeping, coming into work or working nights. And that certainly can have an impact on that front. And then obviously working in a male-dominated organisation, certainly the conversation has started, but certainly that has only happened in the last couple of years. Prior to that, there would have been very little discussion. I don't think it would have been very comfortable just coming out and talking straight about your, the menopause or anything to do with women.
Absolutely not. But I think even, Gretchen, I'm always saying this, it's becoming my quote at this point. But, I think pre-2022, nobody was talking about menopause. Gardaí, no Gardaí, whatever organisation you're in, it was one of those, and we all know this, one of those taboo subjects. And in a lot of cases, actually an object of derision, the kind of stuff that people laughed about, and certainly might have laughed at, kind of women struggling through that and all the rest. It was just something that just wasn't talked about at all. So from the perspective of introducing a menopause guidance document into An Garda Síochána, how have your male colleagues embraced that? Have people welcomed it? Are they terrified of it? How does it work in terms of your male colleagues?
I think it's a learning curve, and it's a learning curve for a lot of women and men, because
True. Yeah,
some women, and probably including myself at one point, didn't know a whole lot about it. But I suppose we've started the conversation, and I think that's the key message, is starting the conversation.
Yeah.
But our male colleagues, like one example is I presented on the menopause and supporting women in the workplace at the Superintendents Association in September last year. So there was probably about 100 people in the room, and 90% of them male.
Okay.
And I was terrified doing the presentation, but and I hadn't slept the 2 nights beforehand. But anyway, I did it, and I got really positive feedback at the end of it, because a lot of our members said that it increased their knowledge from a work perspective, but also from a home perspective.
Indeed.
From living with their partners and children. So I think it's even at that point, that was a great opportunity that was afforded to me by the association to start the conversation. And from that, my presentation has been shared across our internal communications. Also, the wellness team in Garda headquarters, they've been really proactive in promoting the menopause within the workplace. And as you saw, our commissioner, Drew Harris, was front and centre. He launched the document. So, that's setting the tone from the very top down that, it is a thing. And some people may still laugh about it, but when they start experiencing the symptoms or seeing other people being impacted by it, it's just to have that awareness around it.
It is absolutely. And again, as we all know, Goretti, menopause is a thing. Of course, it's a natural part of the female life cycle. But having said that, because it's such an individual experience and it manifests itself in such an individual way with every woman, it's new to us all when we hit it, isn't it? I mean, it's not like we've got a laid out, if you like, sort of path through the menopause that everybody goes through, and you can expect this at this time, that at that time. You're kind of thrown into this sort of a maelstrom of all kinds of different things that are going to affect people, all people differently. So yeah, it's really, really important. And in terms of the document, and if you like, the day-to-day working of that. And for example, let's imagine for a moment, I'm on your staff. I'm 55, so I'm nicely well in the middle of menopause now, and I'm having a particularly tough time. What do I do in An Garda Síochána? Who do I go to? How does that work in practical terms?
Well, the way it is at the moment, obviously there's no pressure on anybody to talk about their personal circumstances, but if they feel they want to, then it's for us to create an environment where they can come forward and speak about it. And I think that's document is there, and it is a guidance document. So for naturally the chain of command within the organisation is you go to your first line supervisor. Now that may not always be practical. And I've looked at research in the UK that was done in relation to police forces, and sometimes that can be a barrier that they don't, some women will not want to speak to, a junior male colleague maybe that's may not understand. So it's just whoever they need to talk to, that we will facilitate those conversations, and it's really to try and assess their needs. And if we can facilitate, it might be just a simple thing as having access to a fan or proper ventilation, that they're not in a crowded room, that they have access to cold water. It's not groundbreaking stuff that they need. It just might be simple things that we can facilitate. from our perspective.
Absolutely. And it's just really important, which is obviously the An Garda Síochána have obviously done a great job in this regard. It's just really important that there is an awareness and education across the organisation around perimenopause and menopause. And particularly, I suppose, it just bearing on my experience of talking to different sectors, that certainly people in that chain of command who are in management positions, be them male or female, in menopause, not in menopause, depending on their age and all the rest, are not kind of, you know, like rabbits in headlights, that they have been trained in this, they have been made aware of this, and that's incredibly important, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, like looking at the research, and I just looked at one paper that the UK police, that was done in relation to 3 police forces in the UK, but it's that I suppose the research would say that somebody, let's say like me, that's in a management position, might be better able to manage the symptoms because, you know, like I can manage what I do with my time.
Yes.
Whereas our members that are at the front line, that are policing 24/7, or out maybe preserving a scene or sitting in court or interviewing witnesses or interviewing suspects, they can be constrained at times in relation to how they manage their symptoms. So I suppose it's to try for us then to be so mindful of that. And I suppose another perspective is looking at if you have, you know, victims of crime or suspects in crime, you know, just again, it's another factor to consider. You know, if we have females involved on either side, that, you know, for us as police officers to be conscious of that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really, really important. So is there anything that I'm forgetting, Goretti, or anything else that you would like to add at this point in terms of what's happening in An Garda Síochána around this whole issue? Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I know our wellness team are in the process of setting up workshops now and to roll out across the country to do workshops at a local level. So the document was launched at the national level. So then it's just to get a team, then a wellness team, and then rolled out to each of the regions.
Right.
And to speak then to, you know, at a more local level. And people like myself, like I'd be a real advocate for it. But I'm involved in the Women's Network, who also are an avenue for promoting diversity and inclusivity, and are a great, I suppose, a great network of men and women across the country promoting that. So again, we'll be utilised in relation to promoting the knowledge and sharing the information across the country as well. So.
Fantastic. And can I ask you as well, Goretti, did the organisation do any research? Did they research members or ask members about their experience in An Garda Síochána pre the introduction of the menopause guidance document? And the reason I ask you that is, for example, and maybe obviously you know the answer to this, like certainly across different sectors and different industries, a lot of research came back where people were either thinking about, or if they were in a position wanting to leave their job due to the lack of those supports, and I think that's well documented at this point. Was that an experience within your organisation, or did you get any feedback like that from your members?
No, there was no specific survey done in relation to it. It was information that people had themselves, you know, that were in the steering committee and from the Women's Network. But I know they are going to look at, they've started a very small survey, but they're going to enhance that further and start doing it more groundwork to see, you know, I suppose, to really get a feel for what the impact is on the ground and at the front line, which is where they're going to feel it most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because you'll remember, just let everybody know, Goretti was a delegate at the inaugural National Menopause Summit, supported by M&S, in the round room in the Mansion House, and we had spoken to the president of the INMO, the Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation, at that event, and they had done, obviously, pre kind of putting together their menopause document, they had done research, and like An Garda Síochána, like your colleagues at Goretti, these people are working in midwifery and nursing. They're at the absolute coalface, emergency services, the whole 9 yards, and they were really, really struggling and finding it very difficult, and obviously the lack of that support network, or the lack of that awareness, and that sort of that I suppose informed the INMO to sort of, you know, get busy in terms of organising menopause supports. So it's wonderful, as you say, that you guys initially, An Garda Síochána, initially reached that conclusion through your women's networks, and having spoken to your peer police forces over in the UK. I mean, look, however we get there, as long as we get there, that's what's most important, isn't it?
Absolutely. And going forward, it's just to be mindful of it and to start, once the conversation has started, it's to start, considering what information is coming forward. Are people disclosing? Because again, like the research would say not everybody's going to disclose, but I suppose it's, again, I think once people start talking about it, they'll be more comfortable disclosing it if they need to disclose it.
Exactly. And I think what's really important as well, Gretty, and I'm sure you would agree, that with any of these initiatives across industries or big organizations like An Garda Síochána or whatever business or, whatever kind of organization this is introduced in, that it is not some kind of a document that lives in a vacuum in a filing cabinet somewhere. You know what I mean? Because it has absolutely no value then, really. You're just really ticking and going, well, we did that, so that's grand. So that constant conversation and that kind of constant awareness and revisiting it, as you say, with introducing it regionally and all of that kind of stuff, to keep it alive and keep it top of the agenda in an organization is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, like that's, I suppose you hit the word there, live. Like, it is a live document because, and it's a guidance document as opposed to a policy, because policies they're hard to change. So, a simple thing is, like, we have all our information on our TOPS app, which is Keeping Our People Safe, which is an app that all our members have access to on their private phones or on their work phones. Right. And basically you can tap in and you'll get all the information you need in relation to a number of medical conditions and sports and well-being. But the menopause is in there, the menopause document is there. So, like, even if they're sitting, on their lunch break, they can read about it if they want. But it's there at their disposal 24/7 if they need that information. So it's another huge, I suppose, asset, I suppose, for every member to have it, on their at their fingertips.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, truly, Goretti, like, huge congratulations to you and your colleagues for introducing it, because number one, you're a huge, big organization, obviously, An Garda Síochána. You're also people that are working on the coalface and you have very difficult jobs. But as I was saying sometime earlier on in our chat, for an organization that was always, I suppose, so historically such the bastion of men, if you like, it's shown real leadership. And I suppose the point is that, if a big organization like An Garda Síochána can be so proactive in that regard, then, there's no excuse for sector-wide. As you know, that's something that we advocate for at the National Menopause Summit, that it becomes a new norm across all sectors, that this is something that is discussed, that people are aware of it. And it's no longer, I suppose, a barrier to entry for women in terms of staying in their jobs and feeling comfortable. And as you say, Goretti, it doesn't force women to talk about it if they don't want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one's putting a gun to anybody's head. But the point is that, if you're having a particularly challenging time, or you want to discuss or make recommendations, even, Goretti, to your superiors or your organization, here's what's happening to me, maybe have we considered this? And that's all about the whole live document piece. So, like, seriously, hats off to yourself, Goretti, and to your colleagues for introducing that. That's absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for your time this evening, because we know you've got a busy job and we really, really appreciate it. So it's super.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed my chat this evening with Goretti. Obviously, there's a lot of takeaways there for all of us as employees or as employers or as managers. And as I was saying, An Garda Síochána have shown great leadership in that regard. So I'm sure everybody found that very useful and interesting. I'm going to sign off now by saying that, as you know, next Monday, or if you don't know, I will be having a chat with Shalini Wiseman, who is also another one of our keynote speakers at the National Menopause Summit, supported by M&S in Cork. And Shalini is a pelvic floor specialist. She's a physiotherapist, and Shalini will be discussing all kinds of stuff to do with pelvic health, which we all know can be a major issue in the whole menopause journey. So we'll be delighted to chat with her then. So, Goretti, once again, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you at the National Menopause Summit. If anybody is looking for tickets for the event, there are still some tickets available. So if you visit the event site or the summit website, which is nationalmenopausesummit.com, you can pick your ticket and join us for all fantastic content for our incredible speakers and panelists on the day. So thanks again, Goretti. That's fantastic. Thank you. Bye.